Three. Oh, we're live. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Thanks for joining us back on the latest episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host as usual, and I'm joined with Seth Wintraub, live from New York. How you doing, Seth?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. And this week we have a big podcast because it was the Geneva Auto Show this week. Plenty of EVs were unveiled. Some were just concepts, some were production cars or cars that are gonna hit production relatively soon. So some things are more exciting than others. But we're gonna start by going through with all the EVs that were unveiled this week, and then we're gonna, as usual, talk about Tesla a little bit, especially the Tesla Semi had the big week with his first run of moving actual production cargo. So it's starting to be, even though it's still a prototype, it's starting to be useful at moving cargo from Tesla. Zero emission cargo. So starting with the Geneva Auto Show, what was your? Do you have a favorite car that was unveiled this week in Geneva, Seth?
Well, I mean, a favorite, not real yet car. I like the Volkswagen specs. Were pretty nice. The 111 kilowatt hour engine seems, kind of nice.
It's going to be made, I think. Though, well, not the interior of it.
No, that thing is not going to be made. That doesn't look like anything.
Yeah, well, the idea of it's going to be made, I think, because the ID concept, for people who don't know, Volkswagen have a series of that they call the ID concept vehicle, which serve as the first electric cars that are going to be on their new production platform, the MEB platform. So that's coming out starting in 2020, and they're going to have a series of new electric cars coming on that platform. And right now we've seen a golf size one, like the just called the ID. Then you have the ID Cross, which is CUV crossover, and of course the most publicized one was the Buzz, the microbus one.
Yeah, but everybody's really excited about that one. I think
a lot of people are, right? That's a little before my time, so I'm not that excited for it, but I see the appeal. And the new one this week was the Vision. I don't know how they want to pronounce it. All the name for those ID concepts are just so weird. So this one is a sedan. So just based on that, I think they're going to have to produce a sedan on that new MEB platform anyway. So it's going to get to production at some point. But the actual concept that they unveil has no steering wheel. It's made to be all like fully autonomous and stuff. So we've seen plenty of concepts like that, and they all make sense. Of course, eventually going to be fully autonomous, and you're not going to need a steering wheel. But that's not the difficult part. It's not to design a car without a steering wheel. The difficult part is to bring to market an actual system, autonomous system that works, which we don't have right now.
Yeah, and like the thing with Volkswagen and a lot of these other players is like they're always announcing something 4 or 5 years out, and they actually never just put anything out there. Like that, there's never even like we're going to have a plan, and we have 1 year, and it just like all of these things are just concepts and press releases, and it's kind of frustrating because right now Volkswagen has the e-Golf, which is pretty underwhelming, and there's no route to get to the what they're showing off.
Well, there's the route. They say it's gonna start in 2020, so we've been complaining about that for a while, and like you said, it's frustrating, but it's gonna be like that until 2020. It's just they're gonna unveil a bunch of stuff. They're trying to stay relevant right now with all the electric vehicles that are coming out. So it's press release, it's concept, and the real push is gonna start in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you know how a lot of cities in Europe are planning to ban diesel.
Mm-hmm.
One of the heads of, I don't know if we even did a story on this, but one of the heads of VW called the cities banning diesel, catastrophic and
scary.
Scary, yeah.
He's scared about it.
He
doesn't have the right to be scared. VW doesn't have the right to complain about banning
diesel. They should
diesel.
shut up about diesel, really. Yeah. They should just keep their mouth shut. So it's just frustrating because, the fact that they're still defending diesel shows me that their real plan, 4 or 5 years out, isn't to be electric. It's to this is where we make our money, and we're going to continue making money here, and maybe we'll have a couple things to show off. It's just so weird that these companies don't get it. Like, they just don't get it.
Yeah, I get your point, but at the same time, if like they said, they have a $84 billion plan for electric vehicles. So if that's true, $84 billion, like that's a serious plan. You can achieve some decent volumes in terms of production electric vehicles. So even though I agree with you that they're gonna probably still rely on the diesel and gas powered car for a while, and at least they plan to. If they're really investing 84 billion in EVs, it's gonna increase production a lot, and that's gonna be good overall. But speaking of still focusing on diesel, did you see that we didn't report on that? I started writing the article, and then I just got I don't even want to shine a light on that stuff. It's just too stupid. Mercedes announced that they're gonna do plug-in hybrids diesel. So
Why?
yeah, they already don't have a decent all electric vehicle. Like they have a bunch of plug-in hybrids, gas powered plug-in hybrids. They have a few BEVs, but they are conversion. They are in, like compliance car. It's not any volume. They have the IQ coming, so that we reported on it this week. Like the unveiled new prototype that's coming in next year. But that press release made it sound like, oh, we're still more focused on at least hybrids. We want to have some kind of internal combustion engine in there, and now we can make it diesel with a small battery pack, and you get a smaller range. But we know what there's a few good plug-in hybrids out there. Like I'm not a big fan of the technology in general. I think like it's just a step toward full electric. But like the Volt has a decent range, and you have a few others like that. The Pacifica is not too bad either. But Mercedes plug-in hybrids are like 12 miles of range, and then you fall on the gas powered engine.
Right, and BMW is the same way.
Same way with the BMW, like the both premium German automaker are the same at this video.
And they're kind of like the old Prius plug-in, where if you gun it, the gas is coming on no matter how much power you have.
Yeah, that too. So it's really not, you can hardly put the label electric car on it. Like it's really just an hybrid.
Right.
Yeah, that announcement was disappointing too this week. Like when they came out with that, but in terms of full electric vehicles, that was there were still a few other things that came out of Geneva. BMW was sort of a weird announcement that they did. So they didn't bring out a new cars and say, "Oh, we're gonna bring this to production" or anything, but they did say that the car that they unveiled last year, the iVision Dynamics, which is a concept, was company concept, was looking very futuristic and anything. So at the time, us and pretty much everybody else in the media just treated it as a concept that never going to make it to production. But now on the sideline of the Geneva show, they announced this week that they're going to bring it to production as the i4. So we all know the BMW i3, BMW's first all-electric vehicle. And the i4 was expected to be like, they're going to come out with the i4 just in the year after or something, that is going to have a new electric car that's going to come after the i3. It just makes sense. But no, the i4 is going to come out. Well, actually, we don't even know when it's going to come out. They said they're going to bring it to production. Well, yeah, I just realized now they never said when it's going to come out.
Well, in the post, talk about 2021.
No, that's the iNext. I don't think that's the same. That's the thing. I don't think that's the same. The iNext, they already confirmed it's going to bring it to production. Unless the only thing they did is that they announced that the iNext is going to be called the i4, which is not impossible.
Right.
But either way, that's probably a timeline that makes sense around the turn of the decade. So, well, I think the if they said it was based on the Vision Dynamics, it's a bigger sedan. It's a pretty big sedan. It's not like the iNext was supposed to be a Tesla Model 3 competitor. That's what they said.
Right. I mean, looking at this, the mock-up they showed, it looks like a larger car, and BMW does their numbers. Like the i3 is kind of like a 3 Series, right? That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, in size maybe, but like in format, it's just so weird. Like
right, and then
it's not a sedan, that's for sure.
And then the trucks or the crossovers are X, right?
Yeah.
So an i4 would be slightly bigger than an i3, not necessarily this big.
Yeah. We don't know much about the only thing that they said is that iVision Dynamic is going to come to market as the BMW i4. That's what they said. You can check the link in the description for to see the iVision dynamics, see for yourself. But it looks like a fairly large sedan, mid-sized to large sedan, and it's going to be all electric. It's gonna have over 300 miles of range, but that was when they announced that last year. That was based on NEDC numbers, so you know what that means. Probably closer to 250, 300 miles for the EPA rating or the real world range.
Yeah, and this kind of falls into the like why not just say 5,000 mile range, because this car is just so far from being real.
Yeah, if it's 2022, man, like it could have solid state batteries in them. It's gonna
Right,
could
and
have
it'll fly.
who knows? Graphene based batteries that are forever coming.
Right, exactly. So I don't get. I mean, it sucks because BMW came out with the i3. They had they were kind of in the Nissan Leaf, Chevy Volt era, and
Mm-hmm.
they had like an early, not amazing but solid EV, and they just haven't done a thing. Like, they have the 330e, which we test drove, and that's a nice car. I mean, it's a BMW 3 Series, but it's it's got it only has like.
And you know what's bothering me the most about this is that every time BMW does an electric related announcement, they say that they are the world leader in electric vehicles because they are very very like creative with the numbers, and they add like a bunch of car in there. Like if it has the batteries, I'm pretty sure they're pretty close to include like the 12-volt battery as an electric vehicle. And is that as long as you have battery in it, it's an electric, and you're gonna put in it. But of course, like the only electric car that they have right now is the BMW i3. It doesn't sell bad though. They have good sales of the i3 still to this day.
And we did a post this week that if you live in California, you're getting $10,000 off the i3.
Yeah. Search the i3 and Electrek. There's we found a pretty good discount, that's for sure.
Yeah, so PG&E and then Southern California. So basically, any part of California, you're getting a $10,000 discount on top of the $10,000 you get back from California, and $7,500 from
the combined rebate from the federal and the state.
Right. So basically, 20,000 off, and actually PG&E will give you another 500. So you're talking $20,000 for an i3. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal for sure.
Especially if you don't need to go.
A few decent updates over the year on the i3, but talking about the powertrain here, the design stayed pretty much the same. And of course, the design can be a deal breaker for a lot of people when it comes to the i3.
The design is futuristic enough. I mean, I think.
Yeah, some like it, but futuristic is a nice way to put it, Seth.
Also, the tires they look like they came off a motorcycle. They're about as wide as your hand.
Yeah, they're thin.
So, there's some trade-offs.
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, we have an idea of what's gonna be an upcoming electric video from BMW. That's the best we can say right now. How about the Porsche though?
Yeah, right? Porsche's kind of coming out.
Yeah, so Porsche unveiled the CUV concept based on the Mission E. So we all know the Mission E by now. We're pretty excited about it at Electrek. It's going to be it's a beautiful car. If they stick to something pretty close to the concept, it's going to be a really breathtaking design.
Okay, so I have to say I have a problem with the SUV or crossover. Like, this thing is not any taller than any like the other, like the
Mission. It's almost a station wagon. It looks like
it's a station wagon is what you call a car with the back. Like, it's not. This is a station wagon. It's not a.
It's a pretty cool looking station wagon.
It's a cool looking station wagon. That's they're used. There's a Dodge Charger station wagon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But and it does have a little bit of ground clearance. It looks like. So I get kind of like the crossover ish, but like, come on, this is not an SUV by any stretch.
I like all the media. They all said, "Oh, it's the Model X competitor." That thing is like half the height of a Model X.
Yeah, and the Model X is not a tall vehicle. I mean, this is in no way an SUV, and frankly, I feel like crossover is a stretch. This thing.
Well, they're calling it I don't get the term crossover. Like crossover, people like slam that on anything that's just not exactly an SUV. but they're calling it a CUV, so a compact utility vehicle. But anyway, look at it; it looks cool. Like if
It
you
looks
look at
great.
it,
Yeah,
it
Porsche
looks
has no problem with their design.
yeah.
I'm actually it's super excited about their charging. I think we've talked about this before. They're going up to 800 volts. So
So they're
basically,
using the same powertrain basically as the Mission E, the original
yeah, I
one.
mean it's the same car, just a little bit more of a rear. But what we like about it, or what's kind of interesting about this beyond the looks, is that they have a really fast charger. So I don't know how their batteries work, but they claim that they're going to be able to charge. I want to say like twice as fast as superchargers. So like
Well, it depends like they're only talking about the top charge rate. Well, they say a number of miles per minute, but it's gonna be we're gonna have to test how long they're gonna can maintain that charge rate
right,
depending on the state of charge of the battery pack. So, based on what Porsche is saying, yeah, probably right. Probably about twice as fast as the model, not the model, but the supercharger of the
which is impressive.
yeah, it is.
And I would be surprised if Elon Musk and Tesla don't have some sort of update on superchargers before this thing hits the road.
Yeah, because it's not coming out until probably late 2019. We're thinking right now.
Right,
There's still time for Tesla to have an answer to it.
right. And they always do. Like Tesla always
Well,
has.
there's no reason not to, right? Like it's not like Tesla is not aware of the battery technology around the charging technology and anything. But I'm not exactly sure what's the bottleneck right now that's stopping them too. But for sure, there's Model 3 issues with a lot of resources going toward Model 3. But coming back to the Porsche Mission E CUV concept, it's still just a concept. It's not they didn't confirm production or anything, but almost sure that something similar is going to come out after the Mission E because Porsche already made clear the intention to have different variants of the model of the Mission E coming to market after the sedan version of it.
Also, we should note the Model X 7-seater or 6-seater, as most people configure it. This thing, even in its concept form, seats 4. So that's kind of a difference.
Yeah, it's probably going to be at least 5 once it's production. But I think the Mission E was the same too. The concept only showed 4 seats, but
Yeah,
yeah, 4 captain seats.
good for China.
Yeah, it's a nice car to be driven in, but no one's get driven in a station wagon though.
Right,
You don't have a driver with a cap in a station wagon.
and if you have a Porsche, you kind of want to drive it. I would
Yeah,
assume.
it's normally it's a great car built around the driver's seat. What else was unveiled at the show? Yeah, there was the Rimac.
Okay, so that is the car. I mean, that is you're talking about pure performance. That car specs are just like off the page.
Yeah, so if we know a bit of backstory on it, so Rimac, of course, has been the all-electric hypercar maker for a while now. Just with the Concept 1, that's basically the only car they had. They had the Concept S for a while, which was basically like a few upgrades on the slightly different design and a few upgrades from the Concept 1. But now they really have the Concept 2, or they're actually maybe just calling it the C2. I've seen the different branding, but either way, they were working on that for a while now. Then Tesla came out with the Tesla Roadster, new next generation, back in November, and apparently they had to change a little bit their plans around that thing because if they couldn't match Tesla's numbers, it would look just awful for them because that's $1 million car, and Tesla's coming out with 200,000 car that can just smoke it. So, but they apparently managed to, at least they claim to, with 100 kilowatt hour battery pack and 4 independent electric motors, one for each wheel. They claim that this thing can put out 1,914 horsepower with 2.3 thousand. That's NM. That's a Newton. What's the
Newton meters, I think.
Newton meters of torque, which is absolutely insane. That's on a 120 kilowatt battery pack, and as I said, DC fast charging CCS. They went with lithium, manganese, nickel chemistry, and the same format as the cells in the Model 3, the 2170. That's almost 7,000 cells, and they went with like a 2 battery pack configuration type thing. Like they have like the Volt type of T battery pack, and it's sitting on top of another square rectangle kind of battery pack. Check out the link in the description of the video. It's pretty cool to see that the battery pack, the powertrain that they came up with.
Yeah, and Rimac does a nice interior as well.
Yeah, they're really well rounded. That's why I'm always impressed with Rimac, because they're a relatively small company, but they can build a crazy electric powertrain. They can build I think the car is good looking. I think it's remind me like a sort of a Acura NSX front, and well, of course it's a little lower since it's more hypercar style, but great design. And like you said, the interior is pretty cool, and even the user interface is like it's
right. I mean, for building 20 of these cars, it's like they've done a lot of work on that.
100. They said 100 for this.
100, all right.
Like the last time was 8, so they went from 8 to 100.
Good. They should. I hope they build like 1,000 of them. But
at $1 million, I don't think it's.
I wonder if like they OEM stuff out to other automakers. I think they make quite a bit of their money.
Yeah, that's what I think they are aiming their business model to be, like more on that side. They're gonna make battery packs for Aston Martin.
Right.
You're gonna make some, and what's the Swedish Sweden
Koenigsegg or something?
Yeah, I cannot pronounce that. I refuse to. They make cool cars, though, but man,
yeah, they make like some of the fastest cars in the world. But and my understanding is that the guy who runs it, who has the same last name, is a big Tesla fan. So I'm surprised.
Yeah, he is.
They don't.
So Matt just wrote the name. It doesn't help, but Matt having the name in front of us doesn't help.
Koenigsegg. Anyway,
maybe
it's weird that you would think that they would do a combo car, like Koenigsegg would design the car and Rimac would do the battery pack.
But that's what they did. I think they did them back. Well, it's not 100% all electric though. It's like it's
right. But I mean, this concept one. I wonder if they've gotten some partners on the car itself rather than just the battery pack and the powertrain.
From what I heard, it's still just like Hull Rimac, and it's pretty cool. It's a good looking car, man. They also talked about adding, of course, autonomous feature to it. Like apparently, they really like built it around like a response to the Tesla Roadster. Even though it's not competing with it, though, like Tesla Roadster is gonna be a fifth of the price, and it's gonna be, I don't want to say high volume, but I think Tesla wants to bring the Roadster back as into the lineup as a regular car that they can.
Yeah, I think it's pretty compelling too. At at $200,000, you get a 4-seater, twice the battery pack as this thing. So you get a 200 kilowatt battery versus a 100 kilowatt hour battery. Pretty much the same 0 to 60. When you're going 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, if you're worried about being conscious, not like that extra point, 1 or 2 seconds. So, this car looks cool.
You have the autonomous part of it. So if you fall unconscious, the car takes over, and
right.
That they put radars, lidars, cameras, and it's like a full, completely sensor suit for autonomous driving, with the computer on board and everything. And they're gonna have even racetrack assist system where they're gonna have registered, pre-mapped racetrack loaded into the car. So if you want, because those $1 million cars, like we're talking about, guys are gonna bring this to the famous racetrack around the world and like test their skills and everything. So it's gonna if you have the racetrack assist system features loaded into it, it's pretty much just a video game at this point. Like you could just build it at home, a nice video game rig, and do it there. But I guess if you want the experience of going there, it's not bad too.
It's a video game with a lot of G's.
Yeah, you can feel the G's too. But that's pretty much about it, I think, for Geneva. Did we add anything else that we missed for Geneva? Oh yeah, the Audi e-tron. So that was weird because we thought that Audi was gonna unveil the actual production car, since it's one of the few all electric vehicles coming out this year. Actually, the claim is going to come out by the end of the year. We're talking about the Audi e-tron Quattro, which is
Which is
Audi's.
weird because like if it's coming out later this year and they're still not showing the car, it's kind of like not a good sign for it coming out.
Yeah, and they all they did this week is that they brought a bunch of prototype to Geneva, and they encouraged people to like chase them in the street and take pictures or whatever. And but the prototype is still like camouflage, and they were so proud about the camouflage. Was insane. Like I've never seen a company so proud about the camouflage that they wrote 1,000 word blog post about it. Um, just it's just a rap job with each one written on it. That's pretty
I
much
mean,
it.
I guess if you have nothing else to say, like you got to start
Yeah.
working on the paint job.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, but it looks good. Looks like a good looking car too. I mean,
Yeah, and they're doing 3 motors on that one, so
yeah, nothing
kind of
has
interesting.
changed with the powertrain apparently, but they talked a lot about their test program, saying that they're gonna put 5 million miles, no, 5 million kilometers on a fleet of about 250 development cars. But those need to be ready by the end of the year. If it's supposed to be launched with the 2019 model year, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty much about it for Geneva. Though there was a uh, Geneva doesn't look as impressive just with those cars, but last week we reported also on the Kona Electric and the Jaguar I-Pace, which weren't really unveiled during the Geneva Auto Show week, but they were like on the sideline of it. They did their thing like separately, but they brought the car at the show for the official debut. But as we reported last week, you can watch that. So for all our thoughts on the Kona Electric from Hyundai and the Jaguar I-Pace. Well, one thing we should mention though about the Jaguar I-Pace this week is that they confirmed the price for the US.
Oh yeah, that was actually a good thing. It was what 60.
69,500, I think,
Yeah,
for so pretty much $70,000 starting price for the US, which is not bad. They managed to put it just under the Model X, which is of course, unfortunately, the car that everyone is comparing it with. Even though we don't agree with the comparison because it's a much smaller vehicle. But if you want a much smaller vehicle, then at least it's not too bad for the price. But my issue with that is that like most people that are not in the market necessarily for an electric car, but just a market for an SUV period, they're gonna look at the car and they're gonna look like at the F pace and just Jaguar's other vehicle, and it's gonna say, hey, it's I can get an F pace for $20,000 less than the I pace, and I think that's gonna be an issue with it. But with this said, for people that want an electric vehicle and they want a compact SUV, then I think the Jaguar has a place in the market.
I agree. I can't wait to try it. I think it's going to be
Mm.
a fun car to drive. It's got plenty of range. It's got everything you kind of would expect. Fast DC, fast charging, um, plenty of power. Looks nice inside and out.
If it was out while you were shopping for your Model X, do you think you would have considered it?
I would have considered it for sure. I probably would not have bought it though. I mean,
No.
the big problem with everybody who's not Tesla is that you can't go on road trips reliably.
Hmm.
You have to plan things out, and like, it just so happens that there's an EV Go near where we go in Vermont. But like, we travel to Florida. We got a puppy recently, so we can't fly anymore. So we're gonna drive to Florida, which it's not with superchargers, it is kind of time consuming. But you can get there. But with you know EV goes at 50 kilowatt, you're filling up a 100 kilowatt. You're even if you're at maximizing, you're just going to spend 2 hours per stop.
Yeah.
Which, like, come on, that's just not realistic.
And EVgo is supposedly installing like 150 kilowatt station, but
Yeah, slowly rolling those out.
I think it's mostly like on northeast right now. I'm not sure it's all the way up and down the east coast. So yeah, that's a good point. Like it's a problem because in terms of size, that wasn't a problem with you. So you weren't looking necessarily for that big of a truck as a Model X. Well, not it's not that huge, but There's, I mean, for the difference with the I-Pace.
With the whole family going on trips, that Model X size is nice. But we certainly would have considered something smaller. My in day-to-day driving, I personally don't like the size of the Model S or the Model X. I
Yeah,
think they're way too big. Like,
yeah.
pulling into parking spots, tight corners. Um, our garage is, we have like 2 inches on each side and then the front of space, and that's it. So
Mhm.
a much smaller car would be on a day-to-day basis a lot nicer. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
But
those
it's always
trade-offs.
useful for that time that you need like to move a 55-inch screen or something like that.
Right, right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but so and also like what I don't like with the price comparison with the Model X is that if you actually all the lines were $10,000 cheaper than the Model X and everything, but that's a starting price. But if you just want to add a few of the options that are standard on the Model X, like for example, you have 20-inch wheels on the Model X instead of 18 or 19 on the Jaguar I-Pace, and you add that, you add the fact that the Jaguar I-Pace, trunk lift is not powered. That's an option. So Model X is standard powered and everything like that. So if you add all those things, like it ends up being like a $3,000 difference with the Model X. So it's not that big a difference. So I still think, I know people don't like that and say that, but I still think it should have been priced a little closer to the F pace for Jaguar. Maybe not the same as the F pace. Maybe not even the same after the federal tax credit, because Jaguar is going to have the federal tax credit in the US for a while now. Like they haven't been selling EVs, so as long as the laws doesn't change, Jaguar's gonna have access that 7,500 for a while. So maybe something like $10,000 cheap, more expensive than the I-Pace, so something around $55,000. The I-Pace would have cleaned up the market, I think, and it would have brought tons of more people into EVs, I think.
Do you think Jaguar wants to sell a ton of them, or do you think they want to get kind of the compliance numbers and then see where things go?
I don't want to call it a compliance car because yeah, it's not. I think they're gonna just go nationwide in the U.S., so that's not gonna be a big difference. Of course, they're always gonna focus on California like they always do anyway. But as long as it's available everywhere, they're gonna call it a compliance car. But we don't know actually how many cars they're gonna produce because they partner with Magna for the manufacturing.
Hmm.
Um, so they're not. If they make 20-30,000 units per year. Uh, that's my. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna be impressed. I think that's gonna be my expectation. Like if they make more than that, like I'm gonna be impressed. If they make less than that, then I say that they're just it's not necessarily. Well, Jaguar never has like a huge.
Yeah, they're not a huge numbers company.
Yeah, either way. Speaking of making a little more EVs, what we had a surprise yesterday when Marie Barra, the CEO of GM, announced that they're going to increase the production of the Bolt, Chevy Bolt EV.
Very vague.
Yeah,
Like, we're gonna turn the knob a little bit, but not. We don't know how much.
people always accuse me of being too hard on GM and the Chevy Bolt EV, but I said it's good news that they increased production, but she never confirmed like by what are they doubling production, or they're increasing by 10%? Because if they're increasing it by 10%, it's like it's another month worth of production, and it's 2,000 to 3,000 units. It's nothing. But if they're doubling it, then yes, that's impressive. But we don't know. It was very vague. But there was another thing that was still vague, but still a good, an interesting thing, which works with what you said. Why you wouldn't have bought the I-Pace when you were looking to buy a Model X is that they were looking to further investment into charging infrastructure. So we know GM has a few deals with the third-party networks out there, but it's just like Seth explained for going to Florida or even Vermont. It's from New York. Even those third-party networks right now, it's not an ideal situation for road trips. So they said that they were talking to energy companies, electric utilities, stuff like that. So eh, again, very vague. So it's not like they announced that they're gonna have a nationwide network like Tesla has or anything like that, which they should. If that's where I think every announcement about EV from the end with a grain of salt, because if you're truly convinced that electric vehicles are going to be the future and you can produce hundreds and thousands and millions of them, like GM is claiming to by like in the next 10 years or so, sometimes in the
And
next
they've
decade.
said clearly that they believe electric is the future. Like,
Yeah, that's word for word. That's not
yeah,
we're quoting here. If you do believe that, then why the hell are you not building and charging infrastructure to support it? Like it's
right.
they're saying it's not our business, and it's not like we don't own charge fuel station, gas station, and stuff like that. It's not the same. It's first of all, if you had the opportunity to own the gas station, wouldn't you? Back when you were when the internal combustion engine were just starting, of course you would have it. That's where the money was, and where the money still is. Like if you have the opportunity to sell the fuel, in this case it's electricity, why wouldn't you? Like Tesla is sneakily starting to build an empire of selling electricity with those charging stations. Like they're putting all the pieces in place right now, and it's not a profit center for them right now, since most of the car in the fleet charge for free. But the Model 3 are starting to be charged for charging, and they always like the referral program for the rest. But that's like always shaky. They could take it away at any time, and all new Model S and X could be on the paid program. So I never get that. Like as long as they don't announce that, I think they're not fully committed to electric vehicles.
Right. And so, like, if you're fully committed to electric vehicles and theoretically, therefore, your dealer network is fully committed to electric vehicles, why wouldn't you put a 50 kilowatt or hopefully 100 or even better DC charging station at every dealer?
Not just one, like two, three, even
Three,
four.
five. I mean, like those cars, if you're going to be selling more and more bolts and whatever comes next, if that's the plan, why not put fast DC chargers at every um, Chevy dealer and like let other people use them. Like somebody will come in from using a Jaguar and they'll have to stay at a Chevy dealer for 30 minutes. Like
Yeah.
what better way to advertise your cars?
Yeah. Of
So
course, the other thing is like people don't really want to go there. Like that's why Tesla is putting in like a place where you have amenities and like restaurants and stuff. But
no, clearly, I mean, but
a few will, a few will, and those few are like it's a valuable sell opportunity each time.
yeah, and rent out some space to like a Subway or something. Who cares? Like they'll put it in a little sandwich shop and whatever.
Well, Tesla is doing it themselves too right now. Like
Right.
it's not like there's not example to follow, and it's
It
not
just
like
takes them a while. It takes them like 10
yeah.
years to like, oh, that's a great idea that they've been doing for 10 years.
But also like the fact, like you said, you said your point assumed that the leadership were also on board. That's the problem with GM and most automakers in the US, is that they have to deal with their own dealership just like we do. So it's separate entity, and although they have power over them, it's not ultimate power. And if they don't want to, then it's not happening.
I mean, if you want to sell bolts, you have to have a way to charge them. Right now, you can do level 2, but I mean, like if you're really selling a bolt, you want to show them how to like
Well,
how
I think
great
if you're
DC
selling
charging
bulk,
is.
you have to have a they have a program for the dealership. Like it's not like it's not non-existent right now. They do have dealership with charging station,
Yeah.
but it's not significant. Like it's not like you said every one of them, and just a few level 2 charging station does nothing to bring people there. Like no one's going to stop there to charge on a level 2. You want fast charging station, and you want like a few of them, not to be strung out. And I really, there's no there's it's already occupied, and you can charge them.
Right. Yeah, it just, like when you look at Chevy, you're just like, it's a head scratcher because like they have a lot of the pieces. Like the Bolt is a great car, besides the seat and a couple other small things. But like it's a great car. Like I enjoy mine. Like very few things to complain about. But like Chevy as a company just doesn't seem like they say these things, but they're not doing the things that they would need to
Yeah.
do if they really meant the things that they say.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because like they have all the pieces. They did the hard work and they built a good EV, but they're not doing the
But they
obvious stuff.
designed it. They designed and engineered it, and LG's building it.
LG, whatever. They partnered with LG, and there's probably equal parts GM and LG in
Yeah.
that car. But they've done a lot of good work. They just haven't done what they say that they need to do. They have not laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on from GM a little bit.
All right.
Should we start talking about Tesla? We haven't
Okay.
talked about Tesla a half an hour. Well, we talked about Tesla, but not Tesla specific news.
In context.
Yeah, we always reference Tesla because they're pretty much the standard for electric vehicles. But in terms of Tesla news this week, let's talk about Donald Trump. Who likes Donald Trump? Even on Electrek, when we mentioned Donald Trump just a second, when you get hate mails, it's ridiculous.
We get really stupid comments. It's like putting out poop and getting flies. Like you write Donald Trump, you're gonna get stupid comments.
It's not. The post wasn't positive about Trump, was a negative about Trump. You still get you just put the name somewhere and you get hate mails, and not very intelligent hate mails. If I've mentioned a lot of insult, a lot of swear. But why we're talking about Donald Trump is because, of course, if you haven't following the news, Donald Trump has been cracking down on trade for the past few weeks with a few announcements more recently about steel and aluminum, where they're going to have a big import tariff. Well, at first was supposed to be like anyone, but now it's pretty clearly focused on China. And Elon Musk, Tesla CEO, give his 2 cents to Trump about not about the steel and aluminum specifically, but he chimed in about the auto trade between the U.S. and China. So if you don't know right now, importing U.S. cars into China, you have a 25% import duties. The other way around, so China to the U.S. is 2.5%. So that's an issue for U.S.-based auto manufacturers. So Elon reached out via Twitter to Trump, now the standard White House communication media, Twitter, and he says he informed Trump of what I just said first, because wasn't sure that he was aware of that. Then he also brought up the issue of ownership. So if you want to own a car manufacturer in China, and you are a foreign automaker or US-based automaker, you have to forego 50% of the ownership of the factory to a Chinese company,
which is a big deal. I think that's the heart of the problem, which like it feels like the Chinese government wants to bring all the intellectual property on into China, so that the Chinese companies can build Tesla Model X's and Model S type stuff on their own. So I can see how Tesla would be extremely hesitant to want to do that. And there were reports previously that Tesla had gotten the okay to do their own company without bringing in another company, but it sounds like that has gone away.
Yeah, apparently what we hear right now is that like Tesla and Elon Musk directly, like with the president of China, president/dictator, they sat down and everything, and they sat down also with the local Shanghai government, and they tried to have a deal for Tesla to land in Shanghai with their own factory, but apparently fell apart over the ownership of it. So at one point, the Chinese government was talking about making an exception on the rule, on the 50% ownership rule, just for making electric vehicles. So you couldn't go to China, Mercedes couldn't go to China, make a factory and build gas-powered SUVs, for example, without giving 50% of the ownership to a Chinese company. But if they were making all electric vehicles, then it wouldn't be a problem. But apparently that never really materialized in China. So once that did, like Tesla apparently put their plans on the back burner, and now Elon, after trying to go to the Chinese government directly about it, now he's going to Trump about it, who has some kind of power over them, because if right now there's a 25% on one side and 2.5 on one side, then Trump can just go to China and says, if you guys want to import vehicles into the US, we're going to put a 25% too, unless you change your current policies. either for the 50% ownership or the actual 25% import tariff. And right now, that doesn't have much of an impact because there's just not that many cars, a Chinese car coming to the US. But they are certainly eyeing to import a lot more cars. So of course, there's Geely. Geely would bought ownership of Volvo. Also bought a big piece of Daimler last a few weeks back. And Volvo, the first all electric vehicle that Volvo wants to produce, is going to be produced in China and exported around the world. So that's going to be a problem for them now if there's a bigger import tariff in the U.S. That's going to be an issue. And if there's a few other companies that wants to do the same thing. NIO is one of them. They have factories in China, but not in the U.S. right now. They have like engineers in the U.S. Manufacturing in China. So there's a few companies like that could have a problem if so that it looks like that's Elon's strategy right now, is going to Trump to try to make the playing field a little bit more fair. But it could if you're going to Trump,
I don't know if going to Trump's the good strategy for anything.
Pretty sure it was the last resort, though.
Right.
Pretty sure like Elon tried with China directly for a while and it didn't work, and now he's at an impasse. So he's going to Trump about it and seeing how it goes. Because technically that's like right in Trump's wheelhouse. Like he's showing to be very strong on trade and the trade deficit with China, but it's the execution that I'm afraid of how it's gonna execute.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to go well. I think
that's a good bet. I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, I think Tesla is going to be just high end in China, where people are willing to pay 25%, just like people were willing to pay the money for exotic sports cars and Mercedes and everything.
Yeah, because it's not like Tesla is not going well in China right now. Like they doubled their sales over the last year and almost tripled it the year before that. So it's going very well, and now over $2 billion in sales in China, even with that 25% import tariff. So I mean, it's not a big issue at the moment for Model S and X, but I think right now they're seeing it as a bigger issue once the Model 3 come, and they were eyeing China as a big market for the Model 3. But now if it's still facing the 25% tariff once the Model 3 arrive, then it's a problem. That's why there was always the plan to have the factory in China for the Model 3, but it looks like Tesla is not budging on having a 100% owned factory in China like they do everything else. And it's not in Tesla, historically speaking, it's not Tesla's modus operandi to back off on this kind of thing. Like just the dealership model is a good example.
Right, they could have backed off of that 100 times.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what's the outcome going to be here. It's a weird one. Definitely a weird one. Moving on to more technology news about Tesla. The Tesla Semi has a big week, like we started the show with. Musk tweeted a picture of the same two prototypes that we've seen since November when Tesla unveiled them. They made it to the Gigafactory this week, and they loaded them up with they loaded battery packs inside the trailers and hooked them up to the two prototype and sent them out to their first official production cargo trip to Fremont factory. So I assume that's Model 3 battery packs in there, like if it's going to Fremont. Though It could be power packs and power walls too, but this is going to the factory.
You know what I noticed also? You remember at the event, one of the trucks had rear view mirrors and the other one had a camera or had cameras.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And these two, they both have cameras or both have rear view mirrors now.
Yeah, they both have mirrors.
So I guess
they still have the cameras too. If you look on the back, they have the cameras like popping out on the side of the trailer, but they still have to, even if they don't rely on it, they still have to have them right now in terms of regulations. So what Elon said on that actual post of the pictures, he said, I'm quoting, "First production cargo trip of the Tesla Semi heavy duty truck carrying battery packs from Gigafactory in Nevada mountains to the car factory in California." So when he said that, like a few people were confused by the fact that he said production, but production cargo. So the cargo is production, not the trucks. The trucks are the same as the prototypes unveiled back in November. So now what happened is that the trip to the factory is about 250, 260 miles. And even though it's not 500 miles like Tesla is promising, it was like one of the best demonstration we had so far that this thing actually has the range promise or something similar. Even if they do just 250 miles, it's still more than like the big Mercedes all electric truck that was unveiled a few weeks ago that was only 125 miles. So it's still impressive if they can do that. But what happened is that they didn't even complete the trip in one go. They stopped. What we learned yesterday is that they stopped at the Rockland supercharger in Sacramento, just outside of Sacramento. And apparently they did charge, or at least they charged one truck for a while. It's not doesn't mean that they needed to charge. Like we reached out to Tesla about it, and they just told us it's just a test program. We're doing test runs, so don't read too much into it. Which is fair, I guess, because like we said, they're gonna do testing. Is that they're probably gonna want to test the charge rate. Though that was a charger that is supercharger, since so not the mega charger that they're promising. But still an interesting one, and that was about 130 miles from the original starting point at Gigafactory 1, and then it set out I think last night for Fremont. We have checked. We have tried to see if I write a Fremont, but we don't know yet.
I mean, they had to get to the Gigafactory, and there's no superchargers at the Gigafactory, so theoretically, they didn't, leave the Gigafactory full of electricity.
Yeah, but that's another good thing to keep in mind too. So, well, they went there without cargo though, so that's
Right.
one. Technically, without cargo, if they can do 500 miles with cargo, then how much can you do without cargo? Like it has to be
quite a bit more, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it has to be quite significant. The other thing is that going from Fremont to the Gigafactory, you have a lot of elevation, so
right.
That's going to be wrong. So that might be the difference there too. But going back from the Gigafactory, then there's a lot of going downhill. You go downhill more than you go up. I think it was something like 4 or 5 thousand foot of elevation. So big difference there. You could actually almost like go up to the Gigafactory without cargo at all, and made it just all right with all the elevation. Put the cargo on, then go back to Fremont and just go with that regen and that big load, just regenning all the way through.
Right, like that huge dump truck that
never
needs to charge.
In the mines, yeah, that's supposedly energy positive, though I have my big doubts on that. But not absolutely impossible, but pretty cool to think about. So yeah, that's the other thing we also posted earlier this morning. So since it was at the supercharger for a while, I'm not sure how long, but probably like over an hour or so. People learn about it pretty quick and just went and check it out and film the trucks and everything. And a guy going by what's his name? My Tesla Adventure that's his username, and he put a few comments on the Electrek after we posted his videos. He followed the trucks when they left, and it's pretty impressive. It's a quick video, but it's still worth a watch, because when you see that truck with supposedly a full load going on a ramp to go on the highway, it's like nothing that you've ever seen with a truck of that size. It just accelerate silently, and like it weighs 1,000 pounds, and like it's a sports car.
Yeah, they don't look anything like real trucks.
Yeah, it's you almost not register it at first. Like it's so unlike what we used to with trucks that what just happened right now? Is just like, is the video speed up or something? Is the sound off, or
right?
You think there's something wrong with the video, but it's just no. It's really impressive. But of course, we already knew that. We saw the truck without cargo before, and yeah, it's crazy quick. It's crazy powerful, and we saw a few runs when we were at the event last year, and it was impressive. The missing piece that we need, like, even though we tend to believe Tesla because they haven't been that much off before in terms of performance. Like, of course, Tesla has this issue with delivering on time and stuff like that. But when it comes to talking about performance spec, they generally deliver on those. So it's not like we don't believe that Tesla can do it at the 500 miles, but as we discussed many times before, in terms of cost of battery cost, in terms of weight of the tractor, it's really tight. It looks like it's It's a really big engineering feat to achieve, and we want to see a full demonstration of the full range, and that wasn't it. That was more about, I think, to show that Tesla is already moving cargo with the trucks, because that's two trailer full of battery packs that made it from Gigafactory 1 in Nevada to presumably to Fremont, at least to Sacramento, but we're gonna assume that they make it to the Fremont factory with zero emission. So we cannot talk about cost because of course those are two prototypes, so it's probably going to be the most expensive cost of the transport that you can have out there, but they didn't save money there. Eventually, if the production
fuel wasn't expensive.
Fuel wasn't expensive, yeah, but in terms of cost of transport, I'm sure it's going to be cheaper to hire two regular trucks and truck drivers to drive them down there than having a bunch of engineers drive the truck and having two multi-million-dollar prototypes and stuff like that. But in terms of emission, there was zero emission for bringing those battery packs on there, which gonna make, at the end of the day, is gonna make a pretty big difference, I think, on the overall like footprint of the manufacturing and the logistic of building Tesla's cars. Right?
And there's always those people who are like, well, you're not using very much you're not producing very much carbon when you use an electric car, but to build an electric car, you use way more carbon because it's way more complex, which I don't think is true to begin with. But then here you can just say, no, you're full of it. They use they have solar panels on the roof, and they have electric transport. So no, that's not right.
Yeah, that it is right. Even we've seen a bunch of people play with the numbers with that. The same thing with it's charged with coal, and even when we're charging with coal, it's often more fuel efficient than with the battery electric vehicle. But yeah, I think it's gonna have a great impact overall over time. And if Tesla is right, it's revolutionary cost for freight transport. So it's really a big deal. We cannot emphasize that enough. It's if Tesla is right about it, there's it's a revolution almost in the freight industry, and there's just no one's gonna have any business buying any other truck than Tesla Semi right now, and that's why competitors don't believe about it. Like the head of trucks at Daimler, which is biggest truck manufacturer in the world, said that it's just he said it can be true, and he has to think that, because if it is, he doesn't have a job anymore. His board gonna come down on him and say, well, why didn't you design that truck, or why we don't have that truck and Tesla has that truck? So that's why there's a lot of doubt, because what's the phrase, like big claims need big proof, something like that.
I was thinking you can't convince somebody of something that's going to take their job away, or something. I'm messing that up, but it's hard to convince somebody that of something that's going to make their life really, really bad soon.
It's like us, and when we read articles about the AI are writing articles right now, and they are doing news report and everything. Oh, it's impossible. They're never gonna take our job. It's the same thing, but we say the same for truck drivers. The whole truck drivers, your job is going away. So when it's directed to you, you have always more difficulty believing it. But most likely than not, we haul our job on in danger at one point or another.
Right, the computer will be blogging for us soon in podcasting.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's David Glofelty. Yeah, that was the quote I was looking for, and it's right. That's why even myself, who follow that closely and generally is a big fan of the vehicles that Tesla is coming out with, I still want to see the full demonstration of that range, which I think is going to come, but might be not with those two prototypes. I think might be with another iteration of the truck. That's probably it. I think those trucks might not be able to do what Tesla claims Tesla Semi can do.
Oh, what will they look like? Will they be
they're gonna look the same. But he's gonna have a new powertrain, I don't think that's a final product. Like they have the exact battery pack requirements in there and everything. Maybe they do. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised is when Tesla come out with a full demonstration, it's going to be a different truck or a different powertrain inside that truck. Either way. All right. I think that's it for our episode of the Electrek Podcast this week. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast, whatever podcast app you're listening to this to, iTunes, everything. If you can leave a review or rating on iTunes or whatever, again, podcast app you're using, Stitchers or everything else, we'd appreciate it. It always helps us a lot. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters who are making this possible and helping Electrek, not just the podcast, but the website too, a lot. So thanks a lot for that. If you want to contribute, just go to the page, patreon.com/Electrek. And we're going to see you next week. Thanks, Ed.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.